New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Welcome to Ministers Talking a weekly program where Rev Brz and Rev Z and their guests chat about current affairs, world events, spiritual principles, and any old they want to talk about. Based on the New Thought philosophy and ancient wisdoms, Ministers Talking shares a visionary perspective of the evolving spiral called spiritual living. Join us each week as we explore the emerging paradigm of life on planet Earth and beyond.
And hello again, dear ones. Reverend Brz behind the banner, not doing his job.
Rev Z right here.
And we have a special guest with us today, Reverend Barbara Schreiner-Trudel from Toronto, Canada. Welcome, Reverend Barbara.
Glad to be here. Happy Canada Day.
Yay!
Yeah. That is where we are starting today. Oh, you didn't tell us you brought props. Now, wait a minute. That's where we're launching off from today, folks. For the next half hour, we're going to sit here and celebrate Canada Day. My personal opinion is it doesn't feel like there's a lot of freedom in the U.S. right now, so I'm not sure if we're celebrating Independence Day or not. We'll discuss that as we go. However, we've been having a rousing conversation here this morning already, the three of us, which is the way this program goes. We get together, we start talking about the world, life, politics, whatever's going on in the world, whatever it is that's in our hearts, we're pulling our attention, and then we just figure out what we're going to talk in the show. So lots of good conversation. Reverend Barbara, tell everybody a little bit about you and where you are and how you ended up connected to this crazy group of people we call New Thought Media Network.
Well, I'm in Toronto, Canada. I'm the minister of the Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake. And right now we're an online ministry, but come September, we're going into a hybrid version. We'll have a beautiful space that we'll share a message from. And, I found this kind of by accident, and I'm really grateful that I did, because Rev Brz, you have created something truly fantastic, and I'm having such fun. Tonight I'm on the Fireside Chat, and this afternoon I have my Joy Show, and here I am this morning talking with all you, and I'm just really having a great time. And I think that, sharing this truth, however we share it, is so important. And I just love talking about spirit stuff. And so I'm grateful to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Three shows in one day. That makes you a pro around this network.
Yes.
You can expect a gold star in the mail sometime soon here, for sure.
Yeah, I love gold stars.
Hey, folks, one of the other top stories today, we want to get into our content a bit here. If you plan to fly this summer, start your prayer work now. Start your prayer work now, and remember, this isn't begging that your flight will make it. It is affirming that your flight will make it. And Z, tell us a little bit about what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure some of you who are definitely planning some trips have noticed that the airlines have been canceling a lot of flights. And yesterday, I think it was the day before yesterday, Delta pilots were picketing outside of an airport and in lieu of or in preparations for July 4th weekend, and now Canada Day. So, I mean, they might start feeling it today. They're complaining about pay and hours, and so it might get a little sticky during the summer. I know my son just was on a trip, and he didn't get stranded overseas, but he almost got stranded because the pilots are flying a lot of hours and they're timing out. If something happens to the plane, they're only allowed to fly a certain amount of hours. And if you time out, that's it. So if they don't have pilots waiting to take that flight, if you time out, it gets hectic. And so with the shortage of pilots, they got, and this is a job hint for anybody. If there's anybody out there that's a pilot or aspiring pilot, they have tons of programs looking for young pilots because all of the pilots are aging out or retiring, and it's going to be a mess right now. So,
wow.
I
really count on that.
I saw a story this past week that on one flight, Delta was offering, I think it was Delta, was offering $10,000 in vouchers for people willing to give up their seat.
wow.
$10,000 in vouchers to give up their seat. And my thought was like, I don't fly that much. Give me $5,000 in cash and $5,000 in vouchers, and maybe we got a deal, right?
I may have to book a flight just to see if I get that offer. I'll take it.
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, it was a crazy
to Geneva.
It was a crazy flight though. It was something like Michigan to Iowa or something. It was some crazy commuter flight, basically. And what I learned and I didn't know was that at least in the United States, if an airline is fully booked and you get bounced because it's fully booked, the minimum is 4 times the ticket price. So if they offer you $100, what they're supposed to offer, the minimum is 4 times the ticket price. Yeah. If they have to remove you from a flight because of their overbooking.
That's great information.
So, exactly. Hey, let's say good morning to Wayne. Good morning, Wayne. Wayne, we were talking about Calgary prior to this incident because this episode, because Rev Brz is originally from Calgary, I think you said. Is that right?
Yes, I am. And Rev ME is on the line today, too. She's checking in from somewhere just outside of Toronto in Hamilton.
It definitely is. We're suddenly outnumbered. Good to see our Canadian brothers and sisters showing up today. So, and for those that might be watching and seeing our wonderful little hacker who wants to, we're getting a couple of messages here. Oops, sorry, that we're trying to get rid of as we go. We'll take care of these.
Aren't they?
Don't worry about those guys. We'll get rid of them. Good morning, Linda. Good to see you as well. Glad you're with us also this morning. All right. It would appear I can't get rid of them anymore because I've already blocked them. Folks, here's another one that struck me. Now, I had to check with Rev Z on this one, and I've never known it take 3 months to get from the point where they say you got the job to the time you're allowed to start the job. But that's what happened this week in the Supreme Court. Newly minted Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson has officially been sworn in this week. It took a little over 3 months since we confirmed her, but she is on the court at this point. And Z Barbara, I got to tell you, my real thought was, damn, why wasn't she there last week?
No kidding.
It might not have changed anything. It might not have changed the actual numbers, but why wasn't her voice part of these decisions prior to everything that went down last week? And I guess I'd love to hear both of your thoughts on all of this.
Do you think maybe they held it off just to ensure that her voice wasn't heard during this? Delay things a smidge?
Well, it's definitely possible. I would think that the Biden administration would have been trying to push that sucker along as fast as they could. Well, but I don't know. I mean, we knew this thing was coming up, but I don't know if they knew exactly when. So, but I do know that at that level, the background checks that they do and they're required to do, obviously they do some pre-work before they even can nominate them.
Right.
Because they don't want to bring them up and find a whole bunch of stuff. But for the type of clearance that she got, which I don't know what it is, but I'm sure it's at least top secret because she's going to see some documents and hear some things. those background checks can take, some of it depends on the clearance. They can take up to a year or more. Some of those checks.
Wow.
They get in your business like nobody's business, because they don't want any surprises, right? I mean, the last thing they want, because I know.
Wait a minute. You're saying that Kavanaugh didn't just surprise us, and Cody Barrett didn't just surprise us. The two of them at least lied through their teeth. They just surprised. Sorry.
Well, but see, they brought it up. It was brought up in their hearings, but they kind of brushed it aside, right?
Yeah.
Because just like the person who's trying to get you in are doing their background checks, the opposite side are looking to see what's missed, what's been hidden, what's been, especially in these kind of things, they're looking for any dirt, if you will, to try to create some controversy. And
So how are you feeling about that Roe versus Wade thing? As a woman, I have an opinion.
Really?
So.
I was over the past, I was watching The Handmaid's Tale, and and I gotta say that as a woman, I can't watch that show right now because it's feeling like a little too close to the surface. Like, where are we moving to when it comes to the rights of women? There was a conversation in Canada about if a man is drunk, he cannot be charged with rape. Like, they haven't passed that yet, but the conversation's there. Like, I'm sorry. I've got a problem with this.
Wow.
As a woman, we got to stand up and shout from the rooftops and say, hey, wait a minute, we need to be heard here.
I just watched a documentary on HBO about George Carlin, the comedian.
Yeah.
And I think he passed away in 2007.
I don't know.
And they did, it was showing his body of work, and his last years where he was talking about abortion and all these different things and all the contradictory things that these guys put out there. It is phenomenal. It's like he was still here today, because he talked about, Roe versus Wade and climate change and racial issues, as if, and this is almost 15 years later, and it sounds like he's been watching right now.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, I was listening to his work many, many years ago, and some of the things he did was such cutting edge information, and I don't think we were paying much attention. I just came back from the Unity Convention, and we had a gentleman there, Dr. Salish Rowe from the Climate Healers, who was talking about how we begin to reverse climate change, which we have the ability to do. But in order to do that, we have to change the way we eat. And
don't tell us. You're going to go there, aren't you?
Yeah. So I'm now vegan.
Good for you.
But I also had a physical healing through that moment. Like, it was profound. But I'll tell you, we have to start looking at everything that we're doing, right? Because consciousness has created the beautiful place we are. Consciousness will change it.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's to me, that's a direct outpicturing of an evolution of consciousness.
Absolutely.
In New Thought, we say we want a world that works for everyone, and that's a little watered down from where we borrowed it, which is a world that works for all. And if it's a world that works for all, that means all of life. That means the pigs and the chickens and the cows as well. And we kind of spoke about this before in the pre-show. If we really want to create a world that works for all, well, we got to start by creating a world where we respect and honor everyone. Yeah. And this week's Supreme Court decision and others this past week definitely do not, from my perspective, do not reflect an honoring of of everyone's experience, of everyone's lived experience.
Yeah. Well, and you know, the one thing that we talked about is this whole idea of power, right? When we look at the decisions that are made, from who gets on a court appointment to the commercials that we see and the music behind the commercial, is all based on power and or the presumption of power, and how you use that, quite frankly, to take advantage of others, right? Is unfortunately the way it's being used more prevalently today. It doesn't have to be used that way, but it has been, and it is. And we have to begin to look at, how do we either ignore all that foolishness that we don't need to listen to or buy into, and begin to figure out how we work for all. Because when we say work for all, we already know just from the planet that there is the ebb and flow that's going to take place, natural. And when we can get in rhythm with that, it begins to flow a lot better. But when we get over consumption and over this and over that, the balance is lost, and then we get what we got now. So the consciousness has to change to say, okay, let's go back this other way.
You know, we talk about power, and power, the real power is that energy within us. And if we take a look at the world and how it's run, the power, yes, it appears to be that one or two on top, but the reality is the base is the biggest component. And if we can begin to get that group fired up and lifted up, that's where the real power is. And we could topple the rest of it. That's my goal.
Yeah.
A little goal.
A little goal. And you know, sometimes folks on this program, we start to sound a little bit like a broken record, because in many ways, so much of this does come back to racial equity.
It does.
And today in Russia, Brittany Griner's trial begins. Now, if you're not familiar with this story, Brittany is a professional basketball player, top of her field. She also happens to be Black, and she also happens to be a lesbian. Oh, well, like those choices, the choice, or her, sorry, not a choice, but her desires and who she is, what the color of her skin should make no difference whatsoever. But I got a pretty good feeling that if that was Larry Bird arrested in a Moscow airport, it would have been on every news station from the minute it happened. It would have been at the front page of every paper until a deal was made, until, hell, we'd probably invade Russia for certain white men, white basketball. I know there's not very many white basketball players, but we'd invade Russia for the right guy.
Absolutely.
And Brittany Griner's the people in her camp are fighting to get this story recognized and to get some traction with this story. It's good that we've seen her in public. It's good. She looked healthy, at least. She didn't look too bad off for having been in a Russian prison for the last 4 months since her arrest.
Why was she arrested again? For being Black in Russia?
Basically, they claim. So I'll get to your answer in a second. The bigger problem here, folks, is that our female professional basketball players have to go to Russia in the off season to make a living. They're not paid enough to play basketball here in the States and not have to go get a second job in the summer. However, she was found with or allegedly in possession of hashish oil in a vape pen, and had vape pens with hashish oil, is the claim.
Yeah.
People in her are saying that's totally out of her style. It's not her. It's not who she is. Why are you trying to sneak that in anyway? But beyond it all, Z.
And the other piece of it is, right, this was not her first rodeo, so to speak, over there. She had played over there for the past 2 or 3 years before this happened. So
Several.
even even if she was thinking about bringing a vape pen, I'm sure they told her this is Russia from year one. There are certain things, even though you're coming in as a star, so to speak, there are certain liberties you cannot take advantage of. And I'm sure that was one, because in almost every foreign country, drug anything is the worst thing you can be charged with.
Right. Exactly. And they are saying she could spend up to a decade in prison.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it is highly likely the court will find her guilty.
Yeah.
Wow. The injustices in our world are just absolutely mind-boggling.
Yeah, and she's a young woman. I think she's like 30, and she's either 30 or in her 30s. I mean, she's young.
Wow.
It can take your breath away sometimes, yes.
So the racial injustice is everywhere. I mean, it really is. When you look at how people of color and specifically African descent, people of African descent, no matter where you go in the world, they are looked upon as something that should not be there. I mean, there were incidents early on in Ukraine, and Ukraine is in a horrible way right now. And we pray for everything to get them out of that. But there were stories in the very beginning when they were trying to get people out. People of color were being either not let on the train or kicked off the train. Exactly. That were there as students working or whatever. It did not matter. They were making those kinds of choices, and it's sad. It really is sad.
It is. The other thing that got me about the entire situation in Ukraine is how predominant it has been within our organization, within North American news, and yet we're not talking about all of the other wars in the world that are going on, because those ones, they're people of color. So why do we need to talk about that? This is a white country. Oh, no, not a white country. I think we have to really look at that.
Yeah.
I was talking on Fireside Chat with Pastor Magnus going, hey, wait a minute. Like, you're talking about Ukraine, but what about Ethiopia? What about the Middle East? What about even the relationship between China and the US? Like, I'm sorry. There's a little racism there, I think. Yeah, and yes, Ukraine needs our love and support, but so does everywhere else in the world. So
it's like that old magician trick, don't pay any attention to the hand over here. And while the real deal is happening over here, but they got this one up so you can watch it and not really know what's going on over here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the neighboring countries of Ukraine that have refused admittance to the Black population, that to me that's a criminal act in and of itself.
Yeah. We got some work to do, ladies and gentlemen.
We can see it. I'm on board.
And I get it. This is scary for a lot of people, not because of what the result might be, but because of what it's perceived white people are going to have to give up. Yeah. And we've grown accustomed to our privilege. There's no question about it. Mm-hmm. We're not superior, but we are definitely privileged. Mm-hmm. And we've talked about that on this show many times, that I can drive in the left-hand lane at 10 under and not worry about it. Brother Z's got to drive in the right-hand lane and do 5 under and might still get pulled over for something stupid, for some dumb reason, just because of
all black.
Just because of, yes.
It's Robert and I talked about this before, but it's I have a 22-year-old son, and when he's, no matter where he is, but definitely when he's home, because I see it more. I'm always saying a prayer, and he's the nicest guy you ever want to meet. Mm-hmm. But he used to play football, so he's got, and I shudder sometimes for him to, do what young people do and get pulled over.
Yeah.
Right.
For
no real apparent reason other than, like, as you said, Rev B, driving while black.
Yeah. It's heartbreaking. It really is heartbreaking. And I mean, I was raised obviously with privilege, except I'm a woman, so that knocked it down a peg. If I was a white man, I'd have a little higher standard. But I had a great interview last week with a transgender man who is Black, and also a police officer in Canada. And we were talking about his transition and stuff, but in previous conversations, he said to me one day, he said, since I've had my full transition, he said, I now have a place of privilege. So I gotta send my love out to Black women, because if a Black man has privilege because of that transition, oh man, I can't even imagine what women are going through.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking.
Yeah. So we're not going to change the world individually, folks, but we are going to change one by one. And that starts with things like refusing the privilege, if possible. At least acknowledging that it's there and being willing. I've heard it said it starts by, I need to now use my privilege
for good,
rather than just letting it get me off of a speeding ticket. Don't worry, I'll still let myself out of the speeding ticket, but to use that privilege as much as possible to uplift Black voices of color, to uplift projects and other events and other things, to be a champion for the equity, rather than just kick back and enjoy, oh, look at all this wonderful stuff in my life.
I think education is a big part of that. And I know my daughter has, she goes to a French public school in Canada. And so it's very diverse, because a lot of the teachers are from French Africa, from France, from Quebec. So it's a very diverse group. And she was riding the subway with two of her Somali Muslim friends. And some woman spit at them and, just yelled and screamed at these poor girls. Well, we called the police, brought them in, had a conversation. They send two white guys. They're going, yeah, whatever. They wouldn't do anything about it. And a few weeks later, I'm talking to this little girl, driving her home from somewhere, and we're having a chat. And, she said to me, why would you call the police? I said, because this is awful. This should not happen. She goes, it happens to me all the time. And she was just like, it was normal. I went, sweetheart, this is not normal, and this has to change. But as a Muslim, she is not able to speak for herself. And the police wouldn't listen to me, because my daughter wasn't the one who was targeted, even though she was part of the conversation. We've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
However, we are the ones that can do it.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, and just like, to the audience, I know you see someone who's whatever trying to do whatever in terms of bombing the show, as opposed to doing something positive or just go somewhere else. People, when people who don't want to give up power look at someone who's trying to help break that gap, they do all kinds of things to prevent that from happening. Because, and I get it, it's scary. It's scary as hell to think that, hey, I may have to give up this privilege. I may have to give up this power. And then the second thought is, if somebody else take control, are they going to be as seditious and crazy as I was and inflict punishment on me?
Oh, we're in interesting times.
Yes.
I'm up for the work.
Well, and again, I feel when I look back on the last 20 plus years I've got in this movement called New Thought, listening to this philosophy, I've been taught and I've been trained specifically for these times.
Yeah.
I didn't know it along the way. I didn't realize it sitting back in classes. I was one of those guys that was like, why are we learning about all these old white guys that have been dead for 100 years? Who are the new people talking about this shit? And bless my teachers for putting up with me. But And you too, folks, right? If you're watching this program, please know I'm including you in this in this dialogue here, that you are also part of what's necessary to create the consciousness change, a change in culture.
Yes.
And I forget who said it, but changing culture is a long and messy journey.
Yeah.
We've got to be willing to get a little dirty and get a little bloody and and be willing to take the hit and be willing to get hit and take the lumps and take the accusation and the abuse and those things, to stand up for what we know is true and what we know is the nature of the universe, not just the misnomer of humanity's disbeliefs.
Yeah. And one of the things we have to do, we have to get used to having the messy conversations.
Yes.
I mean, that it's a simple place to start, but it's a hard place to start. But we have to start there. We have to begin to create a little arenas, if you will, not to fight, but to be able to have the freedom to speak. If you have an issue with me because of my color, then we need to be able to speak to it. We need to be able to dismantle it if it's an incorrect idea that you have, or if you've seen something that has swayed your opinion or belief, then we need to give you some anecdotal information. And the same for me. I mean, it goes both ways, right? We all come with our certain set of preconceived ideas, right? Or notions. And we have to dismantle them. And the only way to do that is have the conversation, bring in the information, so we can get, as you said earlier, Robert, we live on a 360-degree circle. And it does seem repetitive, because if you keep going around the circle, you're going to hit all the points of the circle. But every time you hit it, it's at a different level. It's at a different point of understanding. So we have to begin to have the conversation, full stop.
Yes.
I'm bringing on a new show to the network called Spirit Cafe, and myself and Cheryl are going to poke the bear. Difficult conversations is the whole thing that we're focusing on. And so I'll get you that paperwork hopefully later today.
Right on. Hey, our new friend Mary Ellen saying, thank you, Rev Brz. I am in with you all. We can make it beautiful together as we stand together for a better way to be and show up. Quote, you are part of me, I do not yet. And I think there's she intended the word no, K-N-O-W on the end of that. And I don't know where I heard that recently, but I've started to really recognize that's a big part of it. Everyone out there is a part of me that I don't yet know or have yet to be willing to integrate into my consciousness. Mm-hmm. So everyone I meet brings a gift. Everyone I interact with, especially those I can't agree with,
right?
True.
Are an aspect of the one, of the whole, that I haven't fully come to understand yet, that I haven't had an intimate conversation with yet, to learn what is it that's in me that you're reflecting.
Exactly.
And what is it that I'm reflecting for you?
Yeah.
We're in this together.
We are in this together, folks, and we are rapidly running out of time. So I think you've heard it here today. All right, do your prayer, do that work in consciousness, do what it takes to expand your own consciousness. And together as a family, I do believe we are creating a world that works for all life, not just human life. Yeah. Rev Brz, final thoughts before we wrap up today?
Well, it's Barbara, but that's okay. Rev B. That's okay. I'm just really grateful to be here and have this conversation. And I know that we are on the leading edge of great transformation in our world and creating a world that works for the highest and best good of everyone, everything, a whole new world order. And I'm excited to be part of it.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you for being here today. We're excited that you're a part of it all too.
Yeah, I guess for me, the thought is, let's get some coffee conversations going about these tough issues. nice cup of tea, nice cup of coffee,
Yeah.
and begin to try, or not even try, begin to look at things from a different perspective.
Yes, beautiful. All right, we're putting our naughty user, we're putting that that spam bot that I don't know is part of me into timeout again, folks. So while we continue to do that, please know that New Thought Media Network is a wholly nonprofit organization. We are here to help spread the word of New Thought and the Science Divine across the planet, and we want to do that in unique and enjoyable ways and fun ways. We hope you've had some fun here today, and we hope you've been spiritually inspired here today. If we've done that, please consider making a donation, ntmedia.org/donate. That'll go a long way to sharing this message and creating, exactly like Z's talking about, coffee clubs and book clubs and various ways that we can come together and connect beyond just talk shows, but really connect, have these conversations, and be the change we wish to see in the world. So we want to thank you for being with us. We will be back again next week. Do catch Reverend Barbara's show, Just One You, or Joy. It happens today at 1 p.m. Mountain Time here on the New Thought Media Network. And as you mentioned, you're guest spotting everywhere today, here in the morning and then later this evening on Pastor Michael's show, which is the Fireside Chat at 6. That follows the good news, which I do at 5 p.m. Mountain Time. So join us at 5 for a half hour of good news and inspiring stories to take into your weekend as well. I'm Rev Brz. We'll go around.
Rev Z.
Rev B.
And we are Ministers Talking Shit. We'll look forward to talking to you again real soon. Until then, peace and richest blessings.
And thanks for listening to this week's episode of Ministers Talking. We'll be back again next week with more commentary on current affairs, world events, and any other our ministers want to talk about. And if you found value here, please share our with your friends. Until next time, peace and blessings.